Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Personally, I'm in Venezuela as we speak, in Caracas, in the capital. And I think it's actually a very good place to start my brief discussion. Venezuela, like Iran, has been through years of oppression from the United States. It has undergone years of sanctions in order to break resistance against American domination. The plan in Iran and Venezuela has always been to impose sanctions to create misery, pain, and suffering and death so that ordinary people will basically rise up and choose a regime that would be beneficial for the United States. So basically what we are seeing is that the United States does not believe that Iran or Venezuela would be weakened or that people would rise up against the existing political orders unless the United States imposes maximum suffering. And that, I think, itself implies that both Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Venezuela have a high degree of popular legitimacy. If they did not, then this would not be the behavior of the United States and its allies. In fact, Iran is a country that, since the very beginning, when it began interacting with Western governments, it has been an interaction that has always been full of pain and suffering. In the more contemporary context, we have the 1953 coup, which overthrew the national government. And I should remind my friends and colleagues that the prime minister at that time, Mossadegh, was demonized just like the leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran are demonized today. The language used by Western media to describe Mossadegh is almost identical to the language used to describe the Islamic Republic of Iran today. So I think people should be very cautious about anything that comes from the West, whether it is Iran, Venezuela, Yemen, Libya, Syria, China, Russia, or any other country that makes the mistake of wanting to be independent and sovereign in its relationships with the West. Through my own personal experience, I've lived through the strangulation of the West, meaning not just the sanctions that my compatriots have experienced. I've experienced that too. Not only the demonization that my compatriots have experienced and lived through, but also further, I've literally been strangled by the West in that I survived 2 chemical attacks during the war where Saddam Hussein imposed on my country at the behest of Western powers and with the help of Western powers. Chemical weapons were given as gifts to Saddam Hussein to use extensively and daily against both Iranians and Iraqis that opposed the regime. And Iran was prevented from importing gas masks and chemical agents that could be used to neutralize the chemical weapons deployed against Iran. So Iran was left defenseless. Saddam Hussein was given the power to use chemical weapons extensively on a daily basis, and Iran was prevented from having those chemical agents to help its people survive and to purchase those gas masks that would help us survive. Ironically, my own gas mask during the war, and I was a combatant in the war for 6 years on and off, a few months every year. My own gas mask was North Korean. So while North Korean which is demonized on a regular basis, provided Iran with gas masks to protect its people, the Americans, the Europeans provided Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons to use against Iranians and prevented us from purchasing gas masks. So I was personally strangled physically as a result of Western policies. And I think that is a good point from which I can begin to describe my feelings about the future. As the West declines, their hold will loosen as Western regimes decline. Not their hold will loosen, I believe, upon the rest of the world, and their ability to strangle people and societies and nations will decrease. But at the same time, I believe that we are entering a very dangerous period as well, because as empires decline, they become more reckless and more dangerous and more unpredictable. And therefore, I think it is important for colleagues and friends across the global South to increase their cooperation with one another in order to prevent the worst from happening, but also to help accelerate this transition away from a monopolar order, a unipolar order, to an order which is more acceptable for the rest of us who live outside of the West, but also increasingly an order which would be more beneficial for ordinary people in the West, those who do not belong to the oligarchy that dominates Western societies today. Thank you.